Hey there. Are you ready for my first podcast interview ever? I am so excited to share this episode with you because it's not just about grant writing. It's about life balance and self care during those busy, stressful periods. And let's face it, if you've ever written a grant application, you know how overwhelming those deadlines can feel. I am currently going through one of those hectic grant writing seasons myself, which is why I wanted to bring on someone with expertise in self care to help us navigate these challenges. My guest is Kerri Patt, a phenomenal coach who specializes in helping busy moms and really anyone achieve work life balance. In this episode, Carrie shares so many actionable tips and insights for taking care of yourself, staying grounded, and finding moments of peace, even during the busiest times. Whether you write grants or not, these lessons are universal, I promise you. I also promise that you're going to walk away from this episode feeling inspired and better equipped to prioritize yourself, no matter how full your plate is. Let's dive in. Welcome to Grant Writing Made Clear. The truth is, the grant writing process isn't always clear, but with the right guidance, proven actionable strategies, and expert insights, the process becomes easier, simpler, and yes, clearer. I am Dr. Trinette, your host of Grant Writing Made Clear, and a former nonprofit president turned distinguished professor and behavioral scientist with 2 decades of grant writing experience. I remember what it was like to be a busy nonprofit leader with little time but big financial sustainability concerns. Over the years, I have transformed my skills from securing $1,000 foundation grants to winning multi-million-dollar federal grants. I created this podcast in response to the grant writing coaching requests I've received from nonprofit leaders, entrepreneurs, and professors over the years. Join me each week as I reveal insider strategies and share key lessons that turn wishful thinking into winning applications. Pull up a seat and get ready to be inspired, empowered, and transformed. Whether you're a beginner or a pro looking to sharpen your skills and create a life you love, you're in the right place, my friend. Let's get started. Welcome to Grant Writing Made Clear. I am your host, Dr. Trinette, and today we're joined by Kerri Patt. I'm so excited, Kerri, to have you on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you. You know, I mentioned to you that my listeners are people who write grant applications and they often find themselves juggling tight deadlines, complex tasks, and high expectations, which can sometimes lead to burnout. I've been there before. I know that experience. And I can't think of anyone better than you to guide us on how to integrate self care in the grant writing process. And so I thought we'd start first by just asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself. If you could introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little about who you are, what you do, and how you became passionate about self care.
First and foremost, I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old. I'm married to my absolute best friend, Russ. We've been together since college. I work a full-time, very demanding corporate job by day.
Hmm.
And by the early mornings, I have a podcast called Mom Life, Career Life. And I coach working moms on the side on how to create the time and space in their life to have work-life balance and to have time to have time for self-care and to pursue things that light them up that they're passionate about. So I do all of that on top of being a mom and a wife and all the other things that life throws at you. But I became passionate about self-care probably about 7 years ago when I was working in Manhattan. I was a property manager at the time. And we moved from New York, where my commute was 45 minutes to the city, to New Jersey, where it was an hour and a half. So, on
Wow.
top of working a 9-hour high demand work day. I was commuting for 3 hours. I was leaving before my kids were up in the morning. I was getting home in time to maybe read them a bedtime story and put them to bed. I was on
Mm,
call 24/7. So, when Hurricane Sandy happened, that was almost like 11 years ago. That's when I hit my ultimate burnout because I was a property manager at downtown Manhattan. I had to live at work. I was literally found out I was pregnant a week into being in dirty basements filled with water and mold and just
okay.
unhealthy situations.
Mm.
And that's when I realized that I really needed to kind of make a change, put myself first, figure out how to be the mom I wanted to be the wife I wanted to be, while still having a career because I am not the type of person that can be a work from home mom, not putting work from home moms. I mean, no, I absolutely want to be a work from home mom,
Yeah.
being a mom. It's just as much as I love being a mom, I want to, I want to be making a difference in the world and just using the knowledge I have to help. So that's kind of how I hit a world of burnout, and I just needed to find something to relight the fire inside of me.
I love that. I really appreciate hearing your story and journey about how you also went through burnout. Again, I've been there. It's no fun being there, but I love that you were able to get through that. And that's why we're here today because we know that when we're writing grant proposals, it can be very, very stressful. And so I wanted to have you on today to talk about self care. And self care is a broad topic. I know it looks different for everyone. In your experience, why is self care especially important for people who work in demanding, detail oriented roles that require grant writing?
So when you're in a demanding job, you always have to be on. You have to have intense focus. You have to have attention to detail. You're juggling so many priorities. And especially when you're in a leadership position, you have other people counting on you. You have the
Mhm.
company counting on you. So if you're not taking the time to put your mask on first to take care of you, you're not good for anyone. You're going to
Yeah.
start making mistakes. You're going to get sick. And if you don't make time for your health, for self care, then your illness is going to force you to make time and then you're good for no one.
Mhm. Mhm. I completely agree, and I love your analogy of putting on your mask first. What misconceptions do you think people have about self-care, especially in a professional context?
So I think there's three big ones. I think one, that it takes a lot of time, two, that it takes a lot of money, and three, that it's selfish. Self care does not have to take time. Self care can be
Mm.
just getting up from your desk and going for a walk. Self care doesn't have to be expensive. Yes, the spa days, the pedicures, the manicures. But again, drinking your water is self care. That
Mm,
is free.
mm.
Uh, one of my tips is, and I'll show you, I have my water bottle that's 64 ounces that I carry around with me, and it keeps me accountable. It has the times of when I have to drink. So
Yeah.
that's one of, I know you asked for tips. That's one of the tips
Yeah.
that I highly recommend for everyone, is just staying hydrated, especially when you're stuck at a desk. So those are the three that I think I come across the most.
And I love that because being hydrated obviously is self-care, but also the moment that it takes you to pause and drink the water, it's also giving you a moment to give yourself some quiet time, a moment to yourself. So I can really see how that really is self-care.
Absolutely.
And so as I was also thinking about just I'm in the middle of grant writing right now. I have several grant proposals that I'm working on, just submitted one on Monday. And one thing I know is that grant writing involves long hours of research. It involves weekends. I just worked last weekend trying to work on a grant proposal that we submitted on Tuesday. And it also involves tight deadlines. I wrote that particular grant proposal in 2 weeks. And so again, I just know during that period, I was working, it felt like day and night. I also am a mom of two little kids, 7 and 8. And so would do what I needed to do to get them to school, come back and work all day, pick them up from the school, take them to extracurricular activities, come home, do what I need to do, spend time with them, and then get them in bed and go right back to trying to work on the grant proposal. And so I wanted to know, and you already started doing some of this, but if you could talk more about practical self-care strategies that people can incorporate into high pressure periods?
So one of the things I teach is the most important thing in time management and trying to get that work life balance is planning your week, taking at least 10 to 15 minutes to just look at your schedule. And
Yes.
if you know you have deadlines, it's okay. When do I have this deadline? How much time do I think I need to, dedicate to this and time block to it? And then always add an hour
Yes.
or two because things come up, you think you can get it done and you can't. So
Yes.
giving that buffer
Yes.
and then looking, especially if you're a mom, looking at where your kids need to be. Like, what are the requirements for your kids? Do they have to get to an activity? Do they have a school project? Do they have this? Do they have that? And kind of building that in and seeing where you can delegate. Like, oh, can
Mm.
my partner do this? Can I call on my village? Build your village. That's another important thing.
Yes.
Is there another parent that could maybe pick my child up so that way, during that time I can be working on my grant or meal planning. That's another piece, huge piece of it is because
Mhm.
there's so much decision fatigue in weeknight dinners. It was such a pain point
Yes.
for me that I'm like, I hate to cook. So
Yes.
I'm like,
Same.
I need a quick meal. I would open the fridge and I would look in just like hoping a dinner would magically appear before my eyes. It never did. So,
Mhm.
planning your meals, planning your week, delegating where you can, and most importantly, blocking the time and the space for self-care. I am
Mm.
huge advocate on morning routines. My morning is my sacred space. I get up at 4:30 every morning and I'm not saying anyone people
Wow.
don't have to do that,
Yes.
but I find that especially when you are a parent, once your kids are up, your time is no longer your time. So get
Mm.
up at least a half hour before your kids and that just gives you the time and the space to do what lights you up even if it's just having that warm cup of coffee in peace.
Mm.
But my morning routine, I get up, I shower, I get movement in, I do a little bit of prayer, I do a little bit of meditation, and
Mhm.
then I get to work. So like I habit stack. That's another huge thing, especially if you're on a time
Mm.
constraint. Like one of the things I wanted to incorporate last year was taking vitamins because, you're busy,
Yes.
busy, 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 you're not getting the right foods in because if you're at work, it's like what's quick and easy because I can't get up from my desk. And that's another reason why meal planning is important. If you're actually making your meals in advance and bringing them, you don't have to get up from your desk, even though you absolutely should, but you're eating a nutritious meal. But taking my vitamins, I'm like, "How am I gonna remember them?" So I put them right in front of my kids' snacks that I had to pack for their lunch during the day. So I had to physically touch the vitamins in order to get to the snack. So I knew, take the vitamins, get the snack, put the
Yes.
vitamins back, and that's kinda
I
just
love
little
it.
tricks on how to incorporate little self-care in your day.
I love it. That was so rich. I think you have given us so many tips just in that 2-minute spiel. And I'm curious because you mentioned a couple different things that I think I am doing really well. I also try to meal prep on Sundays for the week. I try to build in time for self care. Whether I keep that time is a whole different story. But I do try to build in the time in my calendar. I'm curious, I guess, about one, the habit stacking. Can you talk more about what that is?
Habit stacking is when you already have a habit in place or something that you're doing every day, and then you take a habit that you want to start and you stack it on top of them. So, like my morning routine, I wanted to do a devotional. I wanted to
Mhm.
read a book, and then I wanted to do a little workout. So, before I go to bed, I make sure I have my journal, I have my calendar, I have my yoga mat out. Like I have everything right there. So I'm taking the friction away from, all you need is that little bit of friction of, oh, I have to go upstairs to get my sneakers. I
Yes.
don't have the motivation. A
Yes.
shiny object comes along or something.
Yes.
And you're like, "I'm not doing that now." But if your sneakers are right there, you're more inclined to be like, "Okay, I'm putting them on and I'm going for that walk," or like the vitamins are right there. I already have the habit of going to get my kids snack in the morning,
Yes.
so the vitamins are right there. So you're zero friction there.
Yes. So eliminating barriers, putting things close together, stacking things
Yes.
close together in terms of time, but also in terms of physical items, it sounds like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it. And then I'm also thinking about when you talked about building your village. And again, that's an area of growth for me. I don't live close to family or friends. Do you have any tips for how moms, busy moms who may be listening in now, or busy dads, whoever, can build a village that will support them and their children during busy grant writing season? Yeah.
So this is coming from, I call myself a recovering perfectionist and a recovering introvert. And I also used to have really bad social anxiety. So making new friends and just like putting myself out there used to be very difficult for me. So when everyone's like, "You have a podcast, how is that ever?" That's not you. It was. It was a lot of self-work that had to kind of push me through
Mhm,
that. But
mhm.
it's if your kids are in activities, when you're picking them up, like get out of the car, go in, talk to parents. You're on the sidelines at a sport event, talk to parents and just say, listen, I could be there for you if you could be there for me. Like exchange numbers and just say, sometimes I have to work late. Is there any way,
Mhm.
since you're already driving past my house or it's not that far away, would you be able to like bring my son home from practice and maybe I could reciprocate or bring your child to the game? So
Mhm.
it's kind of like what can you do for them and what can they do for you? So it's the being reciprocal is a
I
huge
like
part of
it.
it. Even if you have a Facebook community, I mean, I'm very blessed that my town has an amazing mom's Facebook group that is drama free. We have like 20 different Facebook groups, but there's one that's
Okay.
just like really amazing. And, just putting yourself out there saying, like, listen, I work a very demanding job. I'm looking for, a little help, maybe on the weekends I can help you out if you can help me during the week.
Yeah.
Um, getting, finding like a high school student or a local college student that has a car that's like, a mother's helper. That's huge. My
Yes.
girls, they're in high school where, you know, if there's multiple kids, they might not babysit them, but they'll be the mom's helper to be like, okay, the mom needs to work or do her grant writing. You have an older set of eyes on your child to help them with the homework. To like, my daughter puts laundry away, which I laugh. I'm like, you go to someone else's house and put laundry away, but gets home and it
Yes.
doesn't happen. So
Yes.
it's those are kind of like the way I've built my village.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much, and I think even in that lesson, it's teaching us how to build a village. I think it's also teaching us how to get the support we need in life, and that support also relates to writing grants, and so many times I find that people are wanting to learn the skill of grant writing, but they're afraid to ask for help. And what you're encouraging us to do is to ask for help. If we need help, to ask for help. And I think the support is out there. Talking to my listeners directly now, the support is out there. People want to support, but we have to ask for the support we need. We have to be proactive. We have to step outside of our comfort zone to get what we need. And so, yeah, I think that one lesson of asking for help applies to many
Everywhere.
different areas. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I promise you, there are other people out there that feel the same way that would welcome the support or that even want to help.
Yes. 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 Thank you. Thank you. And, I'm also thinking about I was talking to a nonprofit leader recently, and one of her concerns about grant writing is rejection. She applied for a couple small grants, did not get those grants, and now she's afraid to learn the skill. And so, as you think about the rejection that comes with grant writing, the rejection that comes with life, how can self-care build emotional resilience? Is there a way you talked a little bit about I think you talked about mindfulness and praying and journaling. Like, can you talk about how those self-care acts can lead to the ability to cope with rejection? Because you won't always get every grant you write. I don't get every grant I write. And there has to be a way that we get through those rejections, get through those no's.
So a huge part of self-care and time management and life is the mindset you have. So when it comes to rejection, one of my favorite quotes is rejection is God's redirection. So when you have that mentality, it's
Mhm.
also looking at life and rejection as, is it a blessing or a lesson? So what am I supposed to learn from it? So rejection's hard for anyone. No one
Yes.
wants to fail. You
Yes.
put all the time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, lack of sleep, all your energy into this, and then for someone to just reject it, it's painful.
Yeah.
Feel it. Be in the moment,
Mm.
allow yourself
Mm.
to feel the emotions, but then that helps you build up resiliency. And then what are you doing with that resiliency? What are you doing with that lesson? What are you taking away from it? You can't just live in that dark space or else you're never going to grow. So
Yes.
use it as a growth opportunity.
Yes.
Try to peel back the onion to be like, okay, what could I have done better? You know, talk to
Yes.
your peers. Just say, can you read this over? Like, find a mentor. Mentor.
Yes.
I'm huge on coaches and mentors. Like, can you just
Agreed.
read over and maybe like where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
Um, but then the self-care piece is walk away from it. Like give your time the space, give yourself that
Yes.
to just clear your head, you know, let it go. Once you feel it, allow yourself to feel it, but then let it go
Yes.
and try to learn from it.
I love all of that. I think that's a very helpful response to feel the emotions, to sit with that, but don't stay there, right? Like,
Yep.
don't stay there. Move on in a way that is healthy by reaching out for help from mentors and for coaches. Yeah, I think that was a very helpful response for us to think about and to keep with us when we experience rejection because we will experience it on this journey. It's impossible, it's inevitable. I always say if you're not experiencing some rejection on the grant writing journey, you're playing too small. You're playing too small. You're applying for small grants. You're applying for below where you need to be, and so I appreciate that tip of feeling it and then moving forward by finding support. Thank you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I say feel it because it took my husband a long time to learn. My husband is just great with mindset and great with cheering me up. But like if something bad happened, he was always was like, see the silver lining. I was like, can't you just let me be upset for a minute? Like I
Yes,
won't sit here for a long time, but I have to feel it. Just let me feel it. And then it will help you grow, I promise.
yes, yes. I love it. I completely agree with you. I think it's totally normal and healthy to feel the emotions. Yeah. And I'm curious now, you talked about your daily routine a bit with you getting up early. Would you talk more about what a healthy daily routine could look like that involves self-care, maybe what the morning routine could look like, and then what the evening routine could look like, or the weekend routine could look like when you're not at work?
Absolutely. So I do have a freebie for your audience. It's my morning's
Okay.
made simple guide. So I'll
Yes.
send you the link. You could share it in
Okay.
the show notes. But
Yes.
you know, think about the morning you want to have, especially if you have kids, like you know what time they get up in the morning. So, you know, you're going to kind of back into it. But if you don't have time during the day for movement, like you want to have a little bit of movement, but what kind of movement lights you up? I am not a gym person at all. I've tried it just the time it takes to get ready, to get there, to do the workout that I don't enjoy, but I love yoga. So, you know, and I don't have time for a full yoga class. Yoga with Adrienne has been a lifesaver for me. She has small, like short 20 minutes to 30 minutes yoga routine. So if that's something that you enjoy, you know, and the habit stacking, put your yoga mat out
Yes.
at night. So that way you're getting up in the morning, it's in your face when you go downstairs. But it's what would bring you joy during the day by doing it in the morning. Like I
Yeah.
want that hot cup of coffee, even though I'm trying to move a little bit away from coffee this year, but just the joy I get of that first quiet sip, like being in my thoughts. I love reading, even if it's just a page or two in the
Yes.
morning. I call them self growth books. Right now, I'm reading Let Them by Mel Robbins. Highly recommend it.
I've heard about
Love
that. Okay.
yes, I great theory, and I recommend Mel Robbins to everybody. She's
Okay.
just an amazing human. But it's finding what would bring you joy in the morning because if you're creating that time and space for joy in the morning, it just helps your mindset throughout the entire day. And just I mean, most of your audience probably works in an office.
Mhm.
So part of their morning routine can be on that commute. Like if you're taking a train or a bus,
Mhm.
that is a great space for self care. You
Mhm.
can journal, you can listen to podcasts like this one that
Yes.
can, you know, help you with your day job, help you get in the right mindset, help give you tips of how to approach your day. So there's a lot of great things you can do in the morning, but the nighttime is also a huge space to help you with self-care. I know grant writing, you have to do work at night, but if you could get away from that to be able to shut your brain down at night, because if
Mhm.
you're working really hard, you know,
Yes.
it's hard to shut off.
Yes.
So even if part of your morning routine is, okay, I'm going to bed, I'm having a good nighttime routine, I'm going to bed at a normal hour, I'm trying to get that sleep, and then you know you do a power hour of work before you go to work. Like if you want to build that into your routine, even though I try to keep the sacred space of that's your time to do things that light you up in the morning, but if that's when you would do your best work,
Yeah.
and then your commute is when you do a little bit of self care.
Yeah.
So it's really finding what lights you up, what would be what would kind of like give you the best day and then building a routine that fits your needs.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and I'm thinking about some people who may be thinking, well, I can't wake up 30 minutes early before my kids go to school because I am not getting the 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night already, right? And so I can't get up an extra 30 minutes to do the journaling. But what I love is you've said, okay, so maybe you can't get up 30 minutes earlier, but you can find time during your day. Maybe it's during your routine. And like you, when I drive, I love to listen to podcasts or I love to listen to music. That makes me happy. And so you're saying, okay, so maybe you can't find an extra 30 minutes, or you don't think you can find an extra 30 minutes, but finding times where you can essentially multitask, right? So you're on the train, but listening to the podcast or reading a book while you're on the train.
But I will tell you this, you can find the time.
Mm,
Look at just open it, especially if you have an Apple phone, and I'm sure all smartphones do it. You could look at the amount of time you're spending on your cell phone, how many times you
agree.
pick it up, how many times you're scrolling Instagram, watching
Yes,
people live their best lives
yes,
when that could be you living your best life off your phone, taking care of
yes,
yourself. So
yes.
it's and I tell this to my clients all the time, like, I could help you find hours in your week, but if you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have your priorities straight, you're just gonna fill it with stuff that doesn't light you up,
Mm,
with
mm,
scrolling on social
mm,
media.
mhm.
So, it's getting your priorities straight, understanding what your values are and what makes you happy. Like, think
Yes,
about the last time you were truly happy doing something. What was it? And then
yeah.
put that in your week. Make that a
That's
priority.
good. I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's really good. And I'm thinking about your point about social media, about the all of us, I imagine, who waste some time on social media at some point. But what about the person who says social media is social and that is self-care? What would you say to that?
Hey, are you really being social on social media?
Yeah.
Like, are you really engaging with anyone, or are you just getting stuck in the world of reels? And look at the reels that you're looking at. Like
Yeah.
my girls, they just got Instagram accounts this past year, and I'm just like, get like, what are you watching right now? Like, first of all, who created that? But they created it for people like you to just watch it. It's just such a time suck. It really is, and there's zero socialness in it.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Yeah. Thank you. Really, this, Carrie, has been such a helpful conversation. But before we wrap up, what's one key piece of advice or encouragement you'd like to leave our listeners with as they navigate their grant writing work? Just one key piece that you want them, if they don't remember anything else from our time today, what's the one key piece of advice you want to leave with them?
So I don't know if it's one key advice. Create a toolbox. Figure out what your self-care or de-stressor toolbox is. So for me, especially when I'm in a really busy season, whether it's budgeting or like I just know that I can't get up from my desk, or maybe can only get up my desk for like 5 minutes. What are things that kind of regulate my nervous system? Box breathing is a huge
Mm,
thing I do. One, just taking a deep breath and letting it out. Like that's the simplest breath work you could do.
mm,
Box breathing is when you literally breathe like a box. You take a deep inhale, you hold your breath for a couple of seconds, then you exhale for a couple of seconds, hold your breath for a couple of seconds. If you like music, like I'm a huge hip hop and R&B 90s fan. So if I am really stressed, I work from home, I will put on some music and just do a little dance in my kitchen because
yes.
it makes one, I laugh at myself. So just laughing in general will help just de-stress you.
Yes.
Well, if you could just get out and walk. I call it my mental mile. When I am completely stressed, I know I'm not good for work at that point. Like your mindset isn't right, your productivity isn't on point. So just getting up, walking around, it clears your head and you're able to like sit down and just focus better.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's creating that toolbox of like what works for me. And
Mhm.
when you're in those stressful moments,
Mhm.
go to the toolbox. Like you only have a couple of minutes in between meetings or whatever it is, you have time for box breathing. If I have a good 10 minutes, I can go outside, walk around the block, walk around the parking lot, and come back in refreshed. So
Yes.
knowing what you could do with the little pockets of time that you have.
I love that. That is amazing that we create a toolbox of tools that work for us. They may not work for our friends, they may not work for our parent, but they work for us. And having that so that when we're in a very stressful moment, we can pull out that toolbox and implement something that we know or should know that works for us. So I appreciate that. And because this has been so helpful, Kerri, would you please tell our listeners where they can find you, connect with you, or learn more about your work? I know you mentioned a guide that you have that you can send to me that I can put in the show notes, but please let them know where they can find you and how they can learn from you.
Sure. So, best place to find me is my podcast. It's called Mom Wife Career Life. You can find it basically anywhere you listen to podcasts, or you could check out my website, momwifecareerlife.com, or follow me on Instagram at mom.wife.career.life.
That is awesome. Again, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for
Oh,
helping
you're
us
very
think
welcome.
about self-care today. I really appreciate it. And to my listeners, I hope you'll take at least one piece of advice from today's episode and make it part of your routine, whatever that is. Maybe it is the box breathing, maybe it is the walking, maybe it is the getting up early to have some time to yourself or the habit stacking. We talked about so much today that I hope you will consider and begin to build your toolbox so that it is ready to go when you need it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you the next time. Take care. Thank you for listening to Grant Writing Made Clear. I hope today's episode gave you inspiration, confidence, and clear information that you can turn into action. Remember, you are not alone. There's a whole community here striving for the same impact. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a quick review to help more people find the show, and share this episode with others in your network. It really does make a difference. For more grant writing tips and resources, follow me on social media. Until next time, keep showing up, keep learning, and remain determined. I'll talk to you next time. Goodbye for now.